Hello, welcome to My Life on Paper. I am Brianna. I am so glad you are here today. I am playing along with Mixed Media Mayhem, which happens every Friday. And today's inspiration is by Josephine Van der Hoeven for Cocoa Vanilla. And I have a photo of my first espresso martini. It was in I think February of this year. Oh my gosh, and here I'm going already. I recently saw Janet from Galaxy Girl Creations just use her paintbrush. Now, she had wet paper and I did not. Just kind of like moving watercolor around. That was not working for me. So I went back to my packaging technique, which I'm very comfortable with. And I'm going to use the watercolor and some water to make this beautiful creation go over the top of my little thing that I didn't like there. My little mistake. I don't know. Creative blender. And I'm going to use a second color that's kind of a bronze color, and I'm going to put some of that in there. Doing the same thing with the packaging technique and some water in my paintbrush. This did take me a very long time to do this layout, and so I have sped it up times 4. Normally I speed it up double time. So I used my Cricut and I made 3 different cutouts of martini glasses, some with openings, some not, and that latest shade of the brown, the lightest shade, was totally eaten up by my Cricut. It was textured. It was very, I don't know, I'd call it a soft paper. So I don't have very much of that, and you can see what I do have is kind of eaten up, but I'm going to take some of those, cut them apart, and then use some of those on the page to kind of spread out the colors. And right now I should be thinking that, in the middle is where the picture's going to go, which I didn't really think about that. And I think I might have glued it down already. And I do use my wet glue to glue it down. Just because the pieces are a little bit more delicate. So once the glue is dried, it has dried and it's not going to move anywhere, but you'll see that in a moment. And so I'm just trying to figure out what pieces to keep and which ones, since they're welded together on the Cricut, I should have left some just plain, not welded, because they're not going to be full martini glasses if I'm cutting them apart. But I think I do a good job. Again, it takes me a long time, but I think I do a good job of kind of spreading the martini glasses out. And this is where I'm like, oh, my photo's going to go here. And, oh, no, I guess I didn't think that. So I'm going to glue them all down. Down below, I will have the playlist for Mixed Media Mayhem. That is every Friday. There is a Facebook group, which I'll also have listed below. On the playlist, you have to scroll through. I mean, feel free to look at all of the videos. They're all wonderful. But the newest ones are at the bottom, so you really have to scroll a long way to get down to the new ones. Monochromatic is my fallback. When I don't know what to do, I do monochromatic, and I really tried hard not to do monochromatic, but this will be monochromatic. At one point I did think about grabbing some blue things in. I don't have any. I did check. I do have, believe it or not, some like martini type papers, but they were all liquid olives. They weren't chalk. They weren't espresso martinis. So I just stuck with the cut file, and then I'll bring in some other pieces that you'll see in a bit. So I swapped out the insides of the martini glasses that were cut out. And the first one, I believe I used just my liquid glue. But after that, I'm going to pop them all up to give them just a little bit of dimension. I'm a little bit late to the game with espresso martinis. My oldest has a thing for them, and that was her Halloween costume this year was an espresso martini. It was actually quite cute. And actually, I think I'm going to be scrapbooking some Halloween photos in the month of September, so you will see those coming up. I gave it a little bit of lift to see what was not glued down. This inner part of the martini was not glued down. So I will pop that up and get it adhered down. And then I'll make sure to get the loose ends adhered down with the glue. I am very interested to see what other people will do with this. I had a difficult time. Well, I had my espresso martini, so I couldn't think of, other than stars, I couldn't think of what else to do. So martini glasses just came to me. All right, I have these Spiegelmom Scraps sequins, and I'm grabbing out a whole bunch of different things. And those are, I think it's Thanks a Latte is the name of those sequins. And then I'm going to get some things to back the photo. And then I do take out 49 and mark it some newsprint, and I'm going to just put those in 2 different places. And it really looked like on the inspiration layout, that is what happened, was like there's some little bit of these rub-ons, not in brown, of course, but in blue. And you can see under the photo, I have a frame and a tag, and I am going to get, I think, at least one more piece of paper underneath there. The inspiration layout has lots of layering, and is a look I really like. I don't often do it, but it does. Several reasons why I like it is because, one, it looks great. Two, it uses up some of those scraps that I have stored in my color boxes. Here I bring in a 49 and mark it. It's a negative or a film strip type thing. I even trim it down. I put it off to the side and forget about it. So that is not going to end up on the layout. I will have it for a different layout. And then I also pull out some 49 and mark it tags. I was really at a loss at what else to use. And I did go through my brown color box. Nothing really stood out to me, so I'm gonna use at least one of these tags. And I also have these chipboard, like some arrows and things. I'm gonna use a couple of those. Here's where I pull out the papers from my scraps. Once I get them trimmed down, I hair them down here. I bring in the film strip again. It's not gonna stay there. But I do like the browns with this photo. I did use the Project Life app to make, you can take a 4x6 photo and put two 3x4s on it. And so I did that. I used my matte paper with my Epson PictureMate 400. I think I've said this before, but I don't plan on buying the matte paper. It needs to have some kind of a sheen. That doesn't mean it needs to be really glossy, but I do have quite a few to work through yet. But the other part is that it always prints a border, which I'm not really loving. With the 3x4s, trimming them off from each other, you almost have to take the borders off. So that's what I did. So it's a little bit smaller than 3x4. That title is You Do You, and it's like a chipboard title from Dina Wakley. Those have been in my stash for a little bit, so I got that on there. I was super happy. You can ink those actually if you need to. I wanted it white so that it stood out. I did back it with a brown paper so that you can read it nice. That's going to go on the bottom. And then I have a couple little wordy bits to put on here. I was in Florida with my husband, so the first word says together. And then I did put a sequin on the side, to the side of that. And then I do have an arrow, two arrows from my stash. So if I'm using punches to make some arrows, or if I have extra leftover scraps that aren't really big enough to save, I'll punch out some things. So those were my stash. I've got these tickets from 49 and Market. There goes the title. Oh, there's another 49 and Market tag. And that is the only tag that will actually go on there. That word says today, and I'll get a sequin at the end of that as well. I adhere down the mats to the photo and to that to the page. And then the next thing, and I do forget to put the string through the tag hole. You won't see that on the finished layout, but I have done it after that, so you will see it in my layout share at the end of the month. So I put some glue down in the middle of that martini glass, and I'm going to use some of these sequins. I have lots of sequins to use, so those plain ones that didn't have something popped up, I thought this was a great thing to do. I have a word on each of the big martini glasses. The little ones the littler ones don't have anything, but they are popped up. And so then there's two of these that get the sequins. And I don't know if it's like a faux shaker pocket. I'm certainly not doing a shaker pocket, but I just put glue where I want it and then lay the sequins down. I took out the bigger ones. They were harder to get sequins to line up around them, if that makes sense. It took up too much room. So the second one, I'm not using the super big ones, but I'll using my little rub-on tool to get those in place and make sure they're all adhered to the page. At this point, I'm really still looking for something to go along the right-hand side, and I bring in the arrow again. Actually, I'm going to bring in a couple arrows. I layer them up. I made 3 layers of arrows there. You'll see one more come in a minute, and I just couldn't get them to work over these. I didn't want to cover up the martini glasses. So in a moment, I'll be bringing some flare in. I have flare from 3 different places. There's a canvas flare that is from close to my heart. There is what's called an epoxy button, which is that light brown I just put down, and that is by Scrappy Happy. Oh, let's try that again. Scrappin' Happy Studio. And then I've got a flare up in the left-hand corner of the tag. I'm going to put a chipboard star onto the canvas flare. And I'm looking at these flowers because I like to layer things onto the flare. So I did layer a corkboard flower onto there. And now I'm going to just bring my white Distress Linen Spray shimmer spray from Dilutions, and that is my completed layout. Until next time, may your memories always have a home on paper.